chapter I show you how to cut out the check, because there's a few tricks for that, and also I didn't have quite enough fabric, so I'm showing you what you need to watch out for when you cut that. And we're also going to prepare everything for sewing. We're going to cut our interfacing and iron it on, so don't skip this step. Let's have a look at the fabrics now that we can use to make this. And I'm using the little doll here as an example because simply the big blouse would cover all of this. I get it out when we need it. We're just going to talk about what fabrics, the color combinations, and what you can do. You can have the yoke and the cuff in one color as a contrast or fabric, and then the entire top in a different one. You can of course also flip this on its head, and I've got a little picture blended in here where you can see using a plain color for the main blouse and then a flowered fabric for the yoke, and I think that also looks really fabulous. So that is one thing I'm gonna do. And of course I have got a matching thread. I always like it when it's a little bit of a contrast as well. That always works really well. So you could swap the whole thing on its head. One thing I like about the plain yoke is that you can do some embroidery, such as I've done here, but you can also use diamantes to put them on, as you can see blended in, and how that's done. We've got a video for that as well. I think that's really cool. Look, our hat's coming off. I'm just going to take the hat off. And yeah, so that's one option. Or you can take two fabrics from the same collection that work with each other. Here we've got the writing from Michael Miller, cursive, that's called, and then we've got cursive with roses on, and that will go really nicely together. And you can also put some lace on this line where we've got, hang on, the curve and the front, so that would look really nice. Just imagine that coming out from underneath. And again, how to add lace, we have got a video for that as well. That's one of the videos I did 6 years ago, and that is a really good one as well, so you can learn how to do that. Really like that too. Or the other option of course is to keep it fairly plain, and I've got that here. I always think that having a check for these Western shirts is just wonderful. It works really well. I'm going to use this and then I can show you how to finish the hem. We're going to do that with a little piece of ribbon, and then I've got two reels of thread, one dark blue, which I think is nice as a contrast, and the red. And I've also got some piping, and I'm going to put the piping here in the yoke and down there as well, and I think it'll make a really lovely contrast. And then if I find some, you could even put like little tiny little dark blue flowers onto the yoke. I think that would be really nice as well. Now I couldn't find a really dark match for that. This is a little bit bright, but I want to show you how it works. You can make your own bias binding. I've got videos for that as well, but I think why not? If you can get the piping already done, then why not get it and put it on? Now I've also found these really nice slimline buttons. All of this came from Joann's. Buttons tend to be quite expensive, so really shop around for that, and don't, you know, just go for the buttons that are really expensive. Joann's has got packets where you get 5 buttons and they're $4, but you need more than that, so you'll spend about $8 on buttons, which I think is ridiculous. So shop around. They do a whole packet. I've bought a whole packet of 100 buttons or something for $3 or $4, and they're just as good. So this is what I'm going to use. This is what I've already used for my little doll and also for the main blouse, which is in the ebook instructions. And we have got a lightweight linen here, and we've got a quilting fabric from the Rosalinda collection by Michael Miller, which I think is really nice. So hang on, if you want to get this one, it's called a Rambling Rose. hashtag make it fun. I should use that hashtag for this as well, so that everyone can see the lovely stuff we do with that. And let me put her away. And then here I've got the same again. I said that's cursive. It's both from Michael Miller again. Now, fabrics you can use are cottons, I would recommend, and linens. You don't want a fabric that is too thick, especially if you're lining the yoke. It'll make it too thick, and we don't want that. So we want quite nice, lightweight summer fabrics, and yeah, quilting fabric usually is right for that. So those are the fabrics. If you have any questions for that, you can surely leave me comments. You can ask in the group. It's all good. Now, the first one I'm going to cut out with you is a check, and I've just got a yard here. That is not very much fabric, because once you want to do this just in one fabric, you need the yoke twice. And as you can see here, I'm just a little bit short on a yard. This is how it goes on. So we said the back needs to be on the forward. Because it's a check and it's quite busy, it doesn't really matter which way around the fabric lies. If you have a directional fabric, then it does. But like this, I wanted to get it out, and as you can see, it's really tight. Now, you don't actually need to leave any gaps at all between what you're cutting out. But if you have a check on it, you want to make sure that the check runs straight regardless of what the grain here does. And it's actually not quite straight, it's slightly warped, but I'm sticking with the line of the check to make sure that it looks really good. So if you're using a check, that's more important than it being absolutely straight on the grain. You can see it here. Yeah, it's not quite straight, but that's okay for the lower end. What would be worse if there was like a movement down the front of the placket. So I'm going to pin this one on, and I've got it twice. This is on the fold, this fabric, right? So there we go. The selvages are on top of each other. That's the fold of the fabric. So that sits on there. I normally use fabric weights or just my really ugly little pot here, but it's really cool. I've got all these, are sellotaped shut, but I've got old coins in here, you know, from before the EU, and it became one currency, and it's like really cool. I love looking at them as well. I've got them from all over the shop. And then the next piece here, I'm literally putting it straight on. Now for the collar, I'm making sure that I'm ending on the same check. So here is that. Okay, so then I can pin that on. There we go. And the front here, very important that that is straight regardless of what's going on. So I'm going for that check here. There we are, and there we are there. And because here you see it overlaps a tiny bit, and for me that doesn't really matter in this bit. I'm just going to not have that and have slightly less seam allowance there. It's just a few millimeters, but it's important it's straight, and I want to get it all out. And sometimes you don't have quite the right amount of fabric, and I am really stingy with fabric. Right, so the next thing you want to watch out for is the underarm. So I want that to be lining up, so I can see that here I'm just below this line going across. So I need to do the same here. Pop that on so that happens, and awesome, it fits just on. There we go. If you had a fabric that was wider, this is only 120 wide, which is the typical quilting width, isn't it? And it's not brilliant. I really don't understand why they always make that width so short. I suppose you have to buy more fabric, and that's the poor point. But really, if it's 140 wide, it's way better. Right, there we go. There we are, line that one up. and then I can cut it all out, and then we're going to mark it. Cool. And here again, when you're doing something on the fold, make sure that you are sitting on the fold, directly on it, not a little bit over it or something. Some people like go further in or out, I don't know. They think somehow they need to have a seam allowance and then nothing fits. Okay, so then I've got my collar here. Now the cuff here we need twice, so I'm going to cut it 2 times. I'm going to cut out one cuff first, and then I'm going to cut the other side as well. There we go. Again, I make sure that I line up my check, and there we are. Excellent. Right, so let's cut this out. I just want to say for all your beginners, and if you're right-handed, you want to always cut from the left, because then your left hand here can kind of hold on to the fabric, and by holding it just that little bit taut and also lifting it, it makes your cutting out a lot easier. There we go. I'm only cutting to the edge here. A lot of people, when they cut out, they cut further, but you're wasting fabric like that. Everything here is so close together, you really don't want to do that. Now, if I can't get in, of course, I can also cut from this side, but it's not as easy. But you can also move the fabric out of the way. When you can cut from the left, please do it. It makes your life a lot easier. So everything's cut out now, and from my 1 yard, look at this is all I have left, but it would make a really nice bow or something, so that's brilliant. Also, you need to cut out your collar stand once in interfacing, and then we've got the cuffs in interfacing twice as well, and the collar. And then I've got my 3 centimeter strips. I've cut them out this time because that's what I'm telling you to do. Although, as I've said before, when we talked about the pattern, I actually like using this stuff. But okay, I've cut it out just so it's exactly the same as what you would be doing. Now we're going to start marking our pieces, and we've got the yoke here. I've cut that twice, and like I said, I didn't quite have enough fabric, so I did it in a white linen, which will work really well with that actually. You need to mark the shoulder point here on both of those, there, and then you want to mark the center back on both of these. And that's it. And when I fold this out, that is the yoke. Okay, the next piece is my placket. And there's nothing to be marked on there. That's just going to be put to the side. And we're going to take that to the ironing board so we can iron the violin on. So, interfacing. On the collar stand, you want to mark where your collar starts. You've got a mark here, so you do a snip there and a snip here, and then you also want to mark the center back. And what I tend to do is, because these lines here are not necessarily the center back, right? On some of them, it's actually a little bit over. So fold over your collar stand and snip it on top as well. There we go. So that's the collar stand, and I can now take the pattern piece off, ready for another blouse I will cut out. And I am also going to use the interfacing and iron that onto one of them. So what I tend to do is I put this on top and I pop this onto my ironing pile. And the next one is the Western blouse collar. And here all we have to do is, again, we mark the center back, just a snip across there. Now you want to just add the violin to it, and you put this on the little pile for the ironing board, and the pattern can go away. Next, we're going to do the cuffs. And we've got 4 pieces here. Remember, we needed to cut it out twice. And they are actually mirror image. So I've got 2 pairs here. Here and here. And on this one. And on this one, I'm going to put my interfacing and put that on the ironing pile, and that one can go on the other pile. And now I'm going to mark the center back of my Western blouse back straight across there, and that's all I have to mark. These bits here are only if you are doing the smocking, and if you want to do that, then yeah, go on. You know, you can mark that with tailor's chalk, but you can do that later as well. I'm not going to do that now because it's really not necessary. Sometimes the marks just go away if you use a textile marker. So let's leave that until we're actually working on the back. And then I can put this on the little pile just for sewing. And now we carry on with the Western blouse front, and there is nothing to mark on it. We can put the sewing pattern to the side and put this on the sewing pile. Right, and last not least, we've got our sleeve. Now here we have to mark quite a lot. We have to mark where we are going to gather on the lower edge here. We will have to mark where the front is and the shoulder, same, and that's it. Now we can put this pattern piece away and put this onto our sewing pile. And now we're ready to iron on all our interfacing first. Now when you iron on your interfacing, the one thing that can happen to you is that the iron is a little bit too hot, and then it sticks to the iron, which is not very good. So I have got a little trick here. This is what I tend to do, and sometimes I don't show these things. I don't know why, but here I'm going to do that for you real quick. Now I like to do it with lots of steam and lots of heat so that this interfacing doesn't come off anymore. So just make sure that this is hot enough. It's currently heating up to cotton. And what I tend to do is just like let it glide over a little bit, just so it just sticks. You know, I don't even put my iron on, and then I turn that baby over to this side and to this side, and then I do it from the upper side. And by doing that, and this is brilliant, of course you can iron with as much heat as you like because it's cotton and it's bound to stick. So I'm just going to pop this on here, and it will securely do this. You don't need to keep moving your iron as you do this. That is not necessary. You can just leave the iron standing on it. My rule of thumb was always count to 8 and then move it to the next spot. And of course, if you did that with the interfacing side up, it's very likely it'll just melt and stick to your iron, especially if your interfacing isn't of, you know, the highest quality. And then what you do is you make sure that it does not come apart. It still does a little bit, so I'm going to give this Watt 4 here. There we go. Awesome. There we are. That'll do. That'll be really nice and not come off, because that's not nice. When it comes off, it's really, really annoying. Okay, so that's that, and I repeat that obviously with the collar. I do the same thing. I take it here, make sure that the nubbly side is facing down. That's the side that has the glue on. And then I'm going to just tap it so it sticks. Turn it over, and then we're going to iron it on. And now I'm also just ironing on the interfacing to the collar stand. Same thing again. I'm ironing it from the upper side of the fabric so that it's securely fixed and it won't come off. Beautiful. Next, we're going to do the front placket. So what we want to do is iron it in half first. And because I have a check, I will make sure that the check is the same all the way down, because that, my friends, everybody's going to see. If that's not right, that's noticeable. We don't want that to be seen. So I'm going just right along here. I've got a little bit standing. Then we open it out, and now we can put our interfacing on that. And I'm going to put my strip along here. I actually do not need to include my seam allowance, so I can cut it off a little bit shorter. And I'm just going to line it up in here. And just, you know, just iron it on a little bit because I don't want it to melt too. My iron is very, very hot still. And then I can just fold this over and give it a very good press. There we are. Beautiful. Now we're also going to work this, sewing this on the inside, first rolling it to the outside. So I'm now going to fold over the edge here, and that's what we're going to top stitch from the outside later. So I'm just going by my check here. Make sure that it's the same all the way up. There we go. So that's done. Now I can fold this over. So if I just give this one more iron, there we are. And then I repeat that process with that one as well. Now I can take the other side of the cuff here that we've got here, and I can put that together with the cuffs that have the interfacing on it, right? But because we have a right and a left, I need to make sure I put the right ones together, but it's fairly obvious if you get this wrong because they won't fit together. So I'm just going to put these on top of each other, and that goes on my sewing pile, and I'll do the same on the other side, and that goes on my sewing pile. And the collar is ready, so we've got one with interfacing, one without. So that's ready to be sewn, pinned and sewn together in a minute. So that goes on my sewing pile. And that means we're basically prepped up and we can now start the sewing process.